Today's story is a little bit crazy because I'm going to talk about an immigration judge who has made a few seemingly odd decisions. Now, that's not the crazy part, that's par for the course here in the UK. Our immigration judges just look for any excuse possible not to deport anyone. No, the crazy part is that this judge is seemingly using two separate names to cover her political activism and hide it from the rest of her work as a judge. Yeah, so who am I talking about here? Well, it's a woman named Mary Ann Mulready, and as I mentioned, she's an immigration judge. So let's take a look at a couple of her recent decisions. Now, the first one that I could find is a story about a Jamaican man who assaulted a woman while she was sleeping. And yet Mary decided that this Jamaican man could not be deported back to Jamaica. Why? Because he's bisexual and he would be under threat if he went back home. Why do we, the British people, care? That sounds like a problem for him to face when he gets back to Jamaica, not a problem that the British people should be lumped with. Anyway, that was Mary's decision. Another one, pretty comical, COVID made me commit crime. Okay, the long and short of this story is that a guy came from Greece to the UK and became a drug dealer. He was eventually caught, arrested, prosecuted, sentenced. But what was his excuse? Well, his excuse was that the pandemic had made him so poor that he had to turn to a life of crime. And therefore it would be really unfair if the UK were to deport him back to Greece. Mary agreed with this. Not only that, she said that it would be a violation of his human rights to deport him back to Greece. Greece! Think about it, Greece, a European country. How many people go on holiday to Greece? Greece is all right. How's that a violation of your human rights? Absolute madness, right? This is completely insane. Now, I'm not going to go searching for any more crazy immigration decisions by Judge Mary because that's not the really fun part of this story. No. You see, when I was trying to figure out who Judge Mary is and do a little bit of background research, I Googled her name and not a lot came up. There was one mention on the judiciary website which said in 2021 that she was a 41-year-old woman and congratulated her for becoming a judge. That means we can assume she was born in 1980. There's also a mention of a Mary Ann Mulready Jones, so slightly different surname, and that lists her date of birth as 1980, and back then in 2007 she was a trainee solicitor. And that's pretty much it. No pictures, no stories other than a few about cases that she's ruled on. Nothing else. No pictures, nothing. Really interesting, right? Now here comes the plot twist. If instead of searching for Mary Mulready, you search for Molly Mulready, you will start to get a lot of information. The first thing that I found was a Just Giving page under the name Molly Mulready Jones with the username MollyMJ1980, confirming that Molly and Mary have the same birth year. Then I found an article in the Churchill Institute, I don't really know what that is, congratulating Molly for something or other, but interestingly it describes her as a judge specialising in immigration and asylum. Again, the name used is Molly Mulready, not Mary. And lastly, if you search the name Mulready on the judiciary website, you will only find results for Mary. There is no results for Molly or any kind of Molly Mulready whatsoever. So clearly, this isn't a case of there being two judges with similar names. I'm pretty confident, 99.9% sure, that Molly and Mary are exactly the same person, just using two different names. So here's the fun part. Whilst there's not a lot of information online about the name Mary Mulready, there is for Molly. You see, Molly has used that name to write numerous articles, usually about trans rights, the fact she has a trans son, and all the trans festivals that she's been to. But that isn't as interesting to me as her affiliations with the Labour Party. You see, in one article which she wrote for Pink News, all about how the Labour Party need to become less transphobic, she confessed that she was a lifelong Labour activist. This isn't her only form of political activism either, because she's also written articles for the Stop the War Foundation, a generally left-wing group of people who are, well, opposed to war, which, let's be honest, by itself is a perfectly noble cause. She was also featured in a documentary, and I'm going to play you a clip from it. I want you to just pay attention to her body language and her mannerisms, and try and remember that she is an immigration judge in this country.
I'm so ashamed that I had anything to do with it. Sorry, give me a second. There have been tens of thousands of civilians killed in the bombing, and there are millions of people who are food insecure. There are children in Yemen who are starving to death. the Saudis seem to have absolutely no compassion whatsoever.
Now, I don't know exactly when this clip was filmed, but what I do know is that the documentary was released after she became an immigration judge. And I really want you to think about this. Clearly, we are looking at a woman who is very, very emotionally involved in this situation. And what is that situation? Well, she was a lawyer working at the Foreign Office at the same time as the UK sold arms to Saudi Arabia. Those arms were then used by Saudi Arabia on the people of Yemen. And clearly, she's distraught over this. But I have to ask you this question. If she is this emotionally involved, when a Yemeni man is stood in her court due for deportation, how can we rely on her to make the right decision for the British people? Say he's committed some kind of crime, and in reality, he should be deported back to Yemen. How can we rely on Mary or Molly or whatever name she's using on any given day to do the right thing? I would say that we probably can't. And I doubt that this is a situation that's just about Yemen, by the way, because there's this big trend in the left wing and particularly in the far left of people just blaming everything that goes wrong in the entire world on the West. So any country, whether it's Libya, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, whatever it may be, does she have those same feelings? Does she blame the UK? Does she automatically want to take the side of the person who's from one of those countries? I don't know, but I wouldn't bet against it, right? This isn't how the judiciary in this country is meant to work. Here in the UK, judges and politics are meant to be separate. Now, I'm not naive. I understand that everyone has political opinions, even judges. But what I really mean is they're not meant to be political activists in their spare time. I think that's a pretty reasonable request. And look, it's not like that in every country. In America, judges are political. They have political affiliations and they actually have to be elected. They have to go to the electorate and get votes. It's a very, very different system. And our system could work, right? But only if it does actually work. Only if the judges that are appointed are clearly not political, or at least not publicly and outwardly political. But something's gone very, very wrong in the case of Molly/Mary, because she describes herself as a lifelong Labour activist. She's very, 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 trust me if you look into it, pro-trans rights. And she's got these intense feelings of personal guilt. Something has gone really wrong in the system here. And it's not just with her. I covered Tan Ikram on this channel. Many of you will know who Tan Ikram is. He's another judge. And he freed some pro-Hamas protesters who were protesting in London. They had paraglider stickers on their backpacks, right? Very clear symbol of support for Hamas, a prescribed terror organization. So he freed them with no jail time. But it turns out that on his LinkedIn, he's been liking anti-Israel posts. So again, you get a sort of window into his own personal political beliefs, and then you can see how it plays out into the judgments that he is making. Look, I think this is bad. You have someone here who clearly has massive emotional baggage over some arms deal that she was somehow involved in years ago. And then she decides she wants to become an immigration and asylum judge. And I just wonder, did she go for that job because she's got some personal feelings in her conscience that she wants to redress? Is she always going to be leaning on the side of granting asylum and not granting a deportation? Is that why she took this job? And I don't know the answer, okay? But I think those are reasonable questions that we should be asking at this point based on the information we have about her. I don't think she's fit to be a judge. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people who know her better would say something otherwise. But when I look at it from an outside perspective, all of the information I can glean, it doesn't look good. Now, I should say, I don't think any one of you is actually going to do anything like this, but please don't go, finding this woman, Molly, Mary, whatever, and giving her a hard time over this, right? That's not a very balanced approach. Talking about it, raising the issues, using information that's online, publicly available, information that she herself has put out there, that is a reasonable and balanced approach. But yeah, don't go like targeting at her or harassing her. Whatever. I don't think any of you would do any of that anyway. Please do leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all of that good stuff. I'll try and reply to as many comments as I can. And yeah, curious to know what you guys think. I think a lot of you will probably look at this and be like, yeah, that doesn't seem like a very good appointment. We need some kind of wholesale redress of the justice system, the Home Office and the police at this point. Very easy wins for any political party to promise and to deliver. Right, till the next one.